Hi. Okay, so on the matter of shape twins, quadratic shapes, and cubic shapes, the big deal is Flash can store both what's called a quadratic shape, that is a shape dictated by two anchor points, and a single one, that's not the anchor point, the handle, a single one handle. So what it looks like behind the scenes is, I'm gonna use a dotted line, maybe different color. Behind the scenes right here we have one point that is here, another point that is here. If only I could place it in the right spot. Come on. Let me do this. There we go. And from those 2 points, dictating the inclination of the shape, there is a single handle, and I should probably start using the shortcuts again. I didn't want to make noise with my keyboard. This is what the handle for this kind of shape looks like, and it's exactly what you're manipulating when you use the selection tool. Basically, say you have a fresh new line. It's probably gonna be better if I do like this. Sorry, I was a bit unprepared there. Say we have this one fresh line, and I'm using the classic selection tool, and the selection tool manipulates. This is a quadratic curve, so let me put a label on it. Quadratic. Oh god, that super tiny small font. So yeah, so this is the quadratic shape, and it moves like this. So you have both lines meeting at one point in the space, and this is what it looks like behind the scenes. This is the only handle it has. It has only one handle. It might be represented with two handles, but we can get to that later. Now for cubic shapes, and yeah, if you didn't realize, I'm trying to explain what both shapes are before we proceed, but now cubic shapes are defined by an anchor point, a handle, another handle, and another anchor point. So they look like this, except you have to use the right tools for it, which I forgot to do. So now we have anchor, handle, handle, anchor. Let me take a good look at this, and since we're doing this in a nice fashion, I should probably also draw with this line here what it looks like behind the scenes. So yeah, one line from here towards here, and one line from here towards here. But they don't match. They have like small individual anchor points. And something like that. A sad frog. But it could be different. You could, with this kind of line, when you have multiple anchor points, you can make stuff like, say, this is what comes to mind. Because you have full control of the direction that each point goes, because you have two handles. Anyways, these are, after all, the cubic shapes. You have more control over them. Now, the thing is, different tools in Flash work with different kinds of curves. So, for instance, this right here, I have it selected. It's a cubic shape. I've created with the pen tool. It has all the handles, and they are going in different directions. If I were to change it with the selection tool, not the subselection one. The white one is the subselection, the black one is the selection one. Selection tool, if I were to change this, so to begin with, now it has more points than it should, because Flash had to break down that quadratic curve, that cubic curve, into a quadratic one on the matter of text. Cubic. The sad frog is a cubic curve. Flash had to break this down in order to use smaller, simpler quadratic curves, because that's the kind of curve that the selection tool uses. Now the subselection is gonna show this actually quadratic curves as if they had two handles, but these handles are in such a position that this curve is equivalent the equivalent quadratic one. Just like this one is quadratic, except if I could touch the points, it still shows up as if it had two handles. Come on, don't do this to me. Here, let me click it. I cannot click it. Flash, please. There we go. So it shows up one handle and another one magically, but we know for a fact this is a quadratic curve, so it has one virtual handle over here, and this is actually, yeah, sort of where these handles are lined to, where they would met if, yeah, the virtual handle is here. There is one. I can prove. You can access it through code. And anyway, what happened to this curve is Flash had to break it down into smaller, simpler quadratic curves, but now there are many curves. And what the consequence of this on shape twins are, if you have one curve like this, and you tell Flash to animate it into a different curve like this, ta-da, simple animation, not a motion twin, sorry, I have to twin it like shape twin. Now Flash can easily do this because it's a curve which has only two anchor points and one handle, and this curve has also two anchor points and one handle, and the solution for this optimization problem, it's quite simple. So Flash can figure out it only has to move the anchor point around, the handle around, sorry. But, and now there's a big but, if you have one curve which is a quadratic one, it has only two anchor points over here, and one handle, virtual handle over here somewhere, and you tell Flash to move that into, say, similar curve, but that happens not to be exactly quadratic anymore. So now this curve right here, it's, since I've used the subselection tool, now it has been promoted to a cubic curve. So this is one kind of curve that cannot be obtained by a quadratic curve. The cubic curve is more flexible. So now this curve doesn't have a quadratic equivalent. There is no virtual handle that Flash could move. What happens if I try and tell Flash to do this twin? I haven't tested it, but it's probably gonna screw it up. It sorta didn't, but you can see it broke it down into like smaller, more curves. So this goes up, this goes, sorry, left and right and left again. So there's clearly more than one point. So this is kind of the borderline of what you can do when Flash has to convert between one kind of curve and another. Let's try something a bit more complicated. Say I have a square. A good, well-shaped square. And first, let's use a shape twin and make it into star or something like a star, like this. No intersections, just to keep it simple. I hope I didn't make any. Yeah, no intersections. So yeah, this into this. Let's see how Flash handles this. Shape twin, and just as expected, Nice. Now, if we were to do the same twin, I'm just gonna copy this over, and this curve, if these curves weren't quadratic like they are right now, instead they were like slightly cubic curves because of handles that are a bit different. Come on. Move this handle here. See, wait, what? Flash is gonna have trouble with that corner and this curve overall because this shape has more segments than the other one once it's converted. So what happens is Flash is gonna take this shape. Actually, I shouldn't do this because I just created an accidental point here. Let me copy this somewhere else. Here, now it's a copy. Let's take this shape and look what's gonna happen. So Flash has to convert this pure quadratic shape here. Oh, it actually worked. I need to try stuff that is a bit more complicated maybe, but still. Flash is gonna take this shape and this shape right here. So this is a quadratic shape. It has only these two anchor points and a handle in the middle. And this is a cubic, which is gonna be converted to quadratic. And then it's gonna have like 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 or 6 anchor points and a shit ton of like handles in between those. And it's a lot more complicated for Flash to figure out what's gonna happen, what the user is trying to do. See, if I use this, it clearly has already more points. Ooh, I see 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, at least 5 points. And sometimes this can get Flash completely lost. Now, I've tried doing some simple examples here. Actually, I should probably go ahead for very complicated stuff. This is this. Now let's go for should I use like mouth frames or something? Something like this. Whatever. This is gonna do. So we copy this into here. Didn't work. What? Control C. Control V. Come on. Control C. Sorry for that. There we go. Should probably mute my phone. Mute it. Now what should we do? Oh, it's moving. Come on, Flash. There we go. Now it's not moving. So it's gonna say this is a move frame. It's gonna open slightly. It's gonna keep the jaw. Something like that. Yeah. Something like that. So this is pretty simple. Using only quadratic shapes, Flash could figure out what's gonna happen. Now, the true test is, once I convert those curves, like in the final frame, into a bit more complicated cubic shapes, I think Flash is gonna fuck up with this kind of stuff. I had bad experiences with Flash fucking up in these cases. I'm like extrapolating a bit the curves, so it's not a quadratic curve anymore. So this kind of curve cannot be converted into simple. See, there's a minor artifact here, and that stuff is gonna happen all the time once you reach like a certain complexity. And the cause is this image here. It has one, oh my god, 1, 2, 3 segments. And this image over here, it's gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 8 segments. And Flash has to figure out what goes into each position. And there's gonna be minor artifacts because Flash is kinda bad at preserving corners. But you can counter that by using the hint points. Hint points, I think it's the name. Shit, can't even remember how that's. It's gonna be somewhere around here. I think I have the shortcut for it. But yeah, and now let's just take off the numbers and look at what's happening here. And Flash is having kind of trouble figuring out which two segments make up this corner. So he kind of moves segments around in between those big segments. And that's pretty much it. So depending on the kind of tool that you use, you're gonna have generated either quadratic curves or cubic curves. And if you shape twin in between those types, that's trouble for sure, because Flash is gonna have to handle stuff that has a different number of segments in what might look just like a single segment, but actually, if we were to move this one, so right now it looks like 1 point here and 1 point here, but if we have to promote this down into quadratic shapes by just barely touching it with the selection tool, now it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. That means 4 segments. This. And Flash has sometimes trouble figuring out how to manage this many segments. So it sometimes creates this kind of artifacts. See, it's still the same twin, just now it shows up what should be. And these are now quadratic segments. I've demoted, like not promoted, the inverse of promoting. So this is a cubic curve in the bottom, and in the top it was a cubic curve. Now it's a set of quadratic curves that make up the same shape. And that's what Flash had to do for me to use a quadratic shape tool, which is the selection tool. If I were to use only the subselection tool, Flash would never have to do that. Transform tool, I think it works fine with both types. Line tool, it's gonna generate a line, and depending of how you handle it with the other two tools, it's gonna be either a quadratic shape or a cubic one, depending of which tools you use to change it. Pen tool, it's gonna always be cubic curves. And pencil tool is also cubic curves as far as I know. I might be wrong. Yeah, I think it's cubic curves. This is not very aligned. Not at all. Yeah, it's totally cubic curves for the pencil, and most likely the brush too. So the only two 100% quadratic only tools are the line tool and the selection tool. And most of the Flash scripts, distortion, transform, etc., they're gonna not promote the other word. I think it's demote. They're gonna bring down your cubic curves into smaller, simpler quadratic ones, creating this kind of mess, which looks like one big segment, but it's actually many small, simpler segments. I hope that gives you some insight on what's going on behind the scenes. It's a bit complicated, but overall, if you really want to do stuff with shape twins, the easiest way is to stay on quadratic shapes only, because Flash has to downmode them to use the shape twin. It's gonna only work for quadratic. So if you have cubic on both frames, it's gonna downmode them, and it's not guaranteed that it's gonna have the same number of segments. Say, let me get rid of this. Say, I have this cubic curves here and these two quadratic curves. These cubic curves here and the quadratic curves here. If I made this also a cubic curve to be demoted later, it's not guaranteed that it's gonna fix the problem, because it sometimes doesn't have the same amount of segments once converted. Let's check it. I think it's gonna probably be the same amount for this sample. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 segments. And this one has 1, 2, 3, also 4 segments. Let me try a different format of curve, something like this. And this one, oops. Oh, come on. Really? What? Okay, this is what I want to do. And once we touch this, like this, now it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I had this on the other frame, now Flash would have to figure out how the hell to twin 7 segments into only 5 segments. And that would be chaos. So yeah, if you have a lot of variation, this stuff is gonna show up, and it's gonna be really complicated for Flash itself to tell how things go. And that's why you shouldn't do it. That's why you should always use sampler, quadratic curves, if you intend to use shape twins. Then it's 100% sure guaranteed to use, no complications involved. This video is turning out really long already. Sorry for that. I hope this explanation was clear enough. I can do another one, and maybe I didn't prepare enough this. I kind of thought I could explain and figure out stuff at the same time. Yeah, a bit unprofessional, sorry, but hopefully it's gonna explain just enough. So yeah, how to tell both curves apart is mostly by the tool you used last and by what its anchor points look like. So basically there's a formula that says that these anchor points, they go in the same direction. Let me use the other drawing right here. These anchor points, they go in the same direction as a real sort of virtual anchor point would. I think it's here now. Yeah. And they stop by around 1 divided by square root of 2 of the distance. Yeah, it's kind of complicated, but if they look sort of aligned and stopping at the same distance, it's most likely a quadratic curve. If they are very far from what the point would be, like this, or they are misaligned, not at the same distance, then it's most likely a cubic curve. But the easiest way to tell is which tool did you use last: the subselection tool, the pen tool, or the line tool, or the selection tool. So yeah, line and selection, it stays quadratic. Subselection and pen, and I think also the lasso, those generate cubic curves. That's gonna be it. I think I made my point across. Sorry for the extra complicated explanation, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff to keep in mind. Okay, good luck with your twins, I guess. Bye bye.